right, so if we go click on the first slide, we're going to start here. So we're going to start at a really big macro level, and we're going to start with looking at what unemployment is doing. And if you can take a look at the screen, you're going to see that as of this past month, this past March, you'll see that unemployment nationally is still sitting at a relatively historically very low number at 4.2% unemployment. And you can see we take this back 3 years to 2022, and it has been bouncing around anywhere from 3.5 to about 4.2. Although it has ticked just slightly up in this quarter, we'll kind of see what the next 2 quarters start to reveal to us.
And Natascha, just a really good question. Nationally, what's the target?
For unemployment, this is historically low. So if we run anywhere around 5 to 6%, that would be like historically normal numbers. They have been very, very low since the pandemic. All right. So what we're looking at here, this comes from the Federal Reserve, and what it's sharing with us, that is the highest in history. This slide basically tells us that these are people who are having multiple jobs. So it's the highest number we've seen in history, with 8,936,000 recorded people with more than one job income right now. So that's speaking to the inflation that we're dealing with, right? And the cost of just living is higher, and so people are having to obtain a secondary income. And we take this one back to 1995. All right, super fast here. Now we're a little bit more local. And here we are in both Dade and Broward County. And these are the unemployment numbers locally. And so if you look, the top of your screen is Dade County, the bottom of your screen is Broward County. What you're going to see is that unemployment numbers were extremely low, like under 2.5%. And they have started to tick up again, not a major tick up, not yet, not what we're seeing, 2.6% in Dade County, with unemployment registered at 3.5% in Broward County. Again, still historically low numbers, but they are up from where they had been for the last several years.
And Natascha, I think one of the important things that I think worth mentioning is, remember, we were looking at the unemployment chart a few seconds ago, and we asked, what's the target rate? And so if you're looking at target rate nationally versus how the local area is doing, it's important. We're doing really well.
Yeah, we're doing much better, which is why for such a long time, you know, the conversations around housing or the economy in general was that we are insulated. And for a long time, it did feel that way, while other places in the country were already feeling some blips on the radar. The Tri-County area down south didn't feel it to the same degree. So we're starting to see a little bit of that change, but we'll talk about that further. All right, let's keep going. So GDP. So what this basically means is your gross domestic product. This is where we track what is happening as far as the economy goes. And when we look at where we are, and you can see anything that's above the midline. So in the purples, in the pinks, and the yellows, those are positive numbers. Anything in that aqua color on your screen is a negative number. And what it tells you is that any 2 quarters back to back that are running in a negative number, that would be the definition of a recession. And really, a recession is just the output is reduced based on what's happening. So if we take a look, and you take a look at this last quarter, you'll see that we dropped down from 2.8% to 1.7%. Now, that was first quarter of 2025. One of the conversations that's happening out there, and I know you're all hearing it, is this conversation around that R word, that R word that we don't want to talk about, right? That negative R, which is recession. The truth is, team, the fear of a recession can sometimes be a self-fulfilling prophecy that causes a recession. The fear can often be worse. It's like the medicine is worse that before you take it, before it goes down. And so the fear of the recession can be that way because people pause. They say, you know what, maybe I should wait. Maybe I won't buy this. Maybe I won't spend this. And then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where the spending stops. So just kind of want to share that with you guys. This is where we're at. But again, 2 quarters have to show us a recession. We're not seeing that yet.
I always get a kick out of the word because when you use the word recession, it's not synonymous with change of market, a shift in the market.
Not really. Actually, the truth is the housing market has actually been in a recession. We've been in housing in a recession, having nothing to do with the economy, purely based on number of sales. And when, kind of as we looked at that, that really caused a recession, meaning we didn't have as many units moving as we had in the past. All right, if we go to the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about inflation and what's caused some of this. So again, you can take a look at these numbers, but really what's important is where we have been. So let's start with 2024. You can see inflation had come down to, let's just go with the core CPI inflation, the 3.2% number. If you add in energy and food, that would be the yellow number that came in at 2.9. That was how we ended 2024. 2025, inflation actually dropped, reported projected inflation. Again, that's projected. Those numbers are not finalized as of this reporting. And so 2.9, 2.8. The projection is that inflation continues to come down and the Fed's ideal target was in that 2% range. Again, it might be somewhere in 2.5, but that's the range. You can see historically where we were for several years, which is what's caused this run up in prices on many items.
Eggs.
We buy eggs,
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
So when you see a little chicken running around our backyard, you know why. All right, so this right here, this is where I want to pause for a minute, because consumer sentiment is not one of those that we typically track when we talk about the statistics, what's happening in the market. And I think it really is important because it plays into what's truly happening with the consumer today. So if you look where we were, let's look at December of 2024. Consumer sentiment came in, and again, if there was a baseline of 100, the consumer sentiment was at 74. Great majority, almost 80% of the population felt like the world we were headed in the right direction. Again, you can see the different times in history where the consumer sentiment has been higher than that number or dropped off that number. Right now, recorded the first weeks of April, it actually dropped to 50, which is where I say that fear shows up. The consumer doesn't feel confident in the marketplace or in the economy, and that becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy.
I want to add, because this was an important slide for me, because what I saw, or what I asked when I saw this slide was, great, so how do you know? What do you ask yourself to say, hey, look, consumer sentiment's down? Like, how are you tracking that? Or how do you gauge that? And so it's in how the consumer tightens their spending belt. Does that make sense?
Correct.
And so when you start seeing that, whether they're choosing to go out less, are they traveling less? How far are they willing to travel until they say, you know what, that's just, I just don't feel good doing that. And that's how you see this.
Yeah, and I think for us in our industry specifically, it speaks to one of the largest purchases people will make. And so if people feel confident in the economy and things are moving and job growth is happening, then they feel confident in making a large purchasing decision. And when that fear sets in or that concern sets in and the sentiment drops, the brakes go on. And that's exactly what you're feeling in the marketplace.
I mean, can we just notate 71.8 in April of 2020, right when the pandemic first started? We were buying like crazy. Those Amazon boxes were coming to our doors, that's for sure.
Yeah, and look at February 2020,
Yeah.
right before pandemic was sort of a thing, right before, we were all sent home for a period of time. The consumer sentiment was at an all-time high right at that point. And pandemic happens, it drops, but even during the pandemic, the consumer sentiment through 2021 significantly higher than it is now. And again, it's the fear that starts to set in. All right, so we're going to talk about treasury and mortgage and all of those things, but that is not going to be a me conversation. I would love to have Rich, who's joining us from Top Flight, jump in here and join me on this conversation having to do with the mortgage market.
Hey everybody, good afternoon. My name is Rich Passanante with Top Flight Home Loans here. And Natascha, team, thanks for inviting me and having me join the conversation today. This slide here about US Treasury rates, we wanted to take a minute to talk about with you and just remind everybody that US Treasury rates are really, the good barometer for what mortgage interest rates are doing right now. So in the media, in the news, everyone, there's a lot of attention and focus on the Federal Reserve and what they do with the benchmark interest rate. And that really has to do more with your short-term rates, like your variable home equity lines of credit, credit cards, things like that. But your long-term 30-year fixed mortgage rates are more closely aligned to the US Treasury rate. And what we want to show you here with this slide is that, while there was a steep increase in rates over 2022, since then, we've really had a lot of stability in the long-term mortgage rate market where, our rates, typically are 2 to 3% above what the treasury rate is. And that means that they've been right around that high 6 to low 7s. And again, that's been for the past 3 years. So we get a lot of attention on a daily basis on maybe how the bond market moves. And that has more to do with the price of bonds and the yields that they're paying back to investors, not so much the long-term interest rates. So a lot of times, consumers, they'll hear things in the media, not really understand them. So you want to make sure that you're aligned closely with a loan officer that you can trust, that can really help explain what's going on in the market and give accurate rate quotes.
Rich, if I can have you repeat that one more time, because I think that's probably one of the coolest things that I heard coming out of this was that we've had stable loan rates for in excess of 3 years. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at even the chart right here, I mean, you'll see, right? There's little dips here and there. There's highs and lows, peaks and valleys, but for the most part, rates have been very stable for the past 3 years.
That's important. That's important to get out to the consumer base and instead of the noise that they're hearing. I think that's awesome news. Cool. Thank
Rich,
you.
if you could pull out your crystal ball, what can we expect for the balance? Because I know the agents want to know, what can we expect for the balance of this year and maybe even into next when it comes to rates?
Yeah, so I mean, rates, again, just like we've been talking about for the past year or so, the decline in rates that everyone's hoping to see is not going to be, a steep decline. It's not going to be a straight decline either. It's going to go in peaks and valleys as it moves down. Economists, for the most part, are expecting rates to get down towards 6% by the end of the year and maybe into the 5s by, the end of next year. But the other thing that I think is really important is just politically right now, the president really wants to see rates go down. And when there's political will and pressure behind that, usually the market follows suit. So it's anyone's guess right now.
Feels like a boardroom when they're.
But if I just want to tie it back to the last slide real quick, I noticed that consumer sentiment in, I think it was December 2019 was, over 100% or right at 100%. Rates really weren't far off, right, where they were now when consumer sentiment was so high in December 2019. So, again, we need to get around just the rate. If that's holding people back, let's dig a little bit more and let's talk to them and find out what their goals are and how we can help achieve them, because I don't think it's always interest rate that's really stopping people from making a move.
Awesome, Rich. I truly appreciate it. We'll probably have you come back again and chat with our group. And to remind everybody, if you were in one of our market centers, you have a top flight loan professional, get with them, get your consumers in front of them early and really, diagnose what the right solution and right loan product is. Because of course, Rich, we've got a ton of different loan products available for the consumer right now. So.
Yep, exactly.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Rich. All right, let's go into home sales annually. So this is what you are looking at. And again, this comes directly from NAR. So KW put these slides together, but this is an NAR stat on what's happening in the country right now as far as home sales are concerned. So if you look at, we ended the year 2024 with just slightly at 4.1 million sales nationally, which really was almost a carbon copy of 2023. The forecast going into 2025 was that those numbers would go up slightly and we would be somewhere at 4.3 million for the year. I think it is too early to tell whether that forecast will need to be revised and adjusted down. I know locally our numbers are adjusting. Again, this is a national number, but this is sort of what we're looking at in this first quarter. All right. Now we'll look a little bit at appreciation. And when we look at home prices, we can take a look at the home price appreciation. And you see the historical trend on the screen. And what you'll see is that we ended the year 2025 just 9.9% above the trend. So what does that really mean? What that means is if you took the home market and the housing market back to 1990, and again, this is the national market, so the numbers are going to be different in different localities. But let's just say the national market, we take it back to 1990 and we begin the trend line from there. You'll see there have been years where the median sales price of homes was below the trend line, which meant we had dropped underneath and we had an overcorrection. And then you can see right after 2020 where the market takes off again, and we are historically above the trend line. Right now, the country is just around 10% above the trend line, 9.9% above the trend for where we should be. So we know there's a lot of forecasters out there talking all sorts of stuff about, there's a collapse and there's a crash and there's all of it. And then you have the exact opposite side of the fence that says, well, that's impossible because based on the trend lines, we're a max of 10% over a max, as well as we still have a housing shortage. So again, you're getting these varying positions. I'm not going to give you that. What I'm going to give you is the reality of kind of what we're dealing with, the truth of what's happening right now. All right, we move out of that and we move into where one of our greatest challenges right now is in the Florida markets. And that is 100% when it comes to affordability. So affordability is really one of the greatest drivers, or lack thereof, in our marketplace today. So if you take a look at the historical average of real estate, and we can take this back to, need I say, I was a baby. We can take this all the way back to 1972. Well, you can see where housing affordability, although it might feel out of control in some places right now, the truth is it is still significantly better than it was in 1981. Anybody remember what happened in the late 70s, early 80s? Why it felt so unaffordable?
It wasn't anything to do with gas, was it? Oil?
That was the oil embargo. That is correct. That was the gas and oil embargo that happened. And what that did was created the cost of borrowing, the cost of money to go significantly through the roof. Interest rates were 16, 18, 20%. And so affordability, there wasn't any. It was completely unaffordable. Bring that back today from 18 or 20%, 7% doesn't sound very unaffordable. Again, and yet because of all the other factors that are now involved in the cost of housing is coming in higher than it had been for many, many years, more similar to 2006 than 1981 at 35%. All right, so when we look at what's happening, all right, so I want you guys to take a look at this. This slide is something very different. Our friends over at Resi Club put this together. I've got this data from multiple sources, but what it really does, what I like about this is it gives us a picture of what's truly happening with the real estate market in the state of Florida. And when we look at this statistically, it shows us that the prices are falling in certain areas in the state. Now, here's the deal. There are people that have incredible followings on social media and they do great YouTube channels and there's content and there's, all of that.
You heard some of that this morning.
Yeah, some of that made its way into our inboxes, right? And said, hey guys, pay attention. We're very well aware of the story that's being shared out there. And they're not wrong. The truth is they're looking at it from a 10-foot purview, not a 20-foot. They're not nationally, but they're 10 foot. So they're in the state of Florida. The challenge is it's in a silo and they're brushing a broad stroke across the market when the truth is the market is very different because remember team, everything in real estate is local, right? And so local is what's important. So if you take a look at the screen, you'll see that the Miami-Dade, Fort Lauderdale, Pompano Beach, that's that MSA area that goes all the way from Dade County to the county border, does have us still in the negative numbers. It's right at 1.5%, just under 1.5% in terms of adjustments in the home prices. Yet the story that's being shared is that the house prices are dropping. There are places, and you can see every orange dot on here represents a place or a city in Florida, not the orange graph, but the actual dot. So I did want you to see how important it was to pay attention to what's happening at the housing market in our state. A lot of this has been driven by our condo markets. But here's another thing. What do you notice about all those states, all those cities on the top 4 or 5 cities? What happened in those places?
I was going to say, I'm seeing water and I'm seeing a lot of wind.
Yeah, a hurricane, you're not wrong. It's 100%. If we look at all of those cities, that is where the hurricanes came through over the last two, going on 3 years now. And that's affected those markets.
I wanted to just add just a quick little layer of color on this, right? So if I'm looking at this, you can see, you can look at one of two things. Oh my goodness, that's happening in that area. And while that's important, the other side of that is that if you're finding yourself with an opportunity to be in front of a consumer or a customer in that area, how powerful is the slide in terms of where does the pricing need to be correctly? And we're not talking these little price adjustments. We'll talk later about that, but how powerful does the price adjustment or the right price need to be in order for that inventory to move? I think that's what's really cool about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the things that starts to cause, again, this becomes another self-fulfilling prophecy. As the inventory grows, as prices pull back, it is very obvious that there's going to be a gap for some of our homeowners. Now, again, depends on when they purchased, kind of where we're at in the cycle, but there will be a period or a group of properties that are going to maybe be facing a short sale scenario, maybe a delinquency or foreclosure. You can take a look at this slide, has the national numbers, but I'd love to invite up. I do believe we have Heidi Skinner who's with us from KW Communities, the new default community, just in time for what's happening in the marketplace. Dade's going to bring her on our screen, and Heidi's going to share with us a little bit about what is happening in the default space. Welcome, Heidi.
Hey, Heidi.
Hi, everybody. It's so great to be here, and I'm so glad that you invited us to join you. My partner, Joe Ialucci, many of you guys may know him. He was really kind of the REO king back in the day. We started watching these market stats and seeing a lot of discrepancies and started having some pretty interesting conversations. And, 8 months later, we have this new default solutions community where we help agents prepare and really adapt to shifting markets. And I love how you mentioned that real estate is local, because of course it is. Everything's local, and it can be as local as your county, it can be as local as your city, or local to different neighborhoods. And one thing that I really appreciate about Joe is his love for stats, and not just numbers, but how to make actually informed decisions about it. And he's going to dive into some of those things that you alluded to, including some of the stats that really kind of aren't telling the entire story. And there's a lot of things that are kind of brewing underneath the surface level. And really, that's the purpose of our community. We basically wanted to create a platform and a space that we wish that we would have had. I was one of the first people that did a short sale in the state of Utah back in 2002. So when the market shifted, my market shifted early in 2009. And short sales became one of my specialties because they're so tightly wound with REOs. I was in the St. George, Utah market. Joe is here in Vegas. We just started collaborating, and we felt these shifts happening pretty early on and knew that we needed to start preparing our training, updating all our documentation, reaching out to past REO clients that we've had, and really figuring out what we need to do and what we need to put together to make sure that agents are really prepared for whatever is going on in their market, whether that means there's going to be short sales or foreclosures or not, whether that means just answering questions with the facts about what options are available to people and helping them make better decisions. Because the one thing that hasn't changed is that real estate's still about relationships, and building those relationships and nurturing them is never been more critical. I think Joe's on here. He's here in the Vegas market. I'll let him kind of fill in the blanks, but he's my partner in crime in KW Default Solutions. Joe, I can't see you.
I always have camera problems, so I don't know what's happening today, but I'll just roll through it. Well, I want to thank you guys, and I want you guys to thank your leadership team for bringing you events like that. I'm active in 4 market centers, and I don't think we pulled together such great events like this. So hats off to the team back there for getting this all done. They're doing a great job, and it's important to kind of touch base and see where the numbers are at. So I want to go over a couple of quick things. You know, on the national side across the country, foreclosures are climbing a little bit, and it's definitely going to lead to we're going to start to see some things change. There were 6.6 million people that are coming out of forbearance, which is a massive number. Most of them don't even know what their options are. So that's something that as agents we can address. Talking to banks and servicers, those clients of mine, a good 35 to 45% of those people that do go in the loan modifications end up failing. And they end up as a default or, you know, even a short sale. We're also starting to see the hedge funds selling off the rental properties. I know in Florida, it's a big thing. A lot of the big hedge funds dove in and bought a bunch of rental properties. As they're selling those off now, they're kind of changing the rule of the comps because they own them outright, so they can do anything they want. We're also seeing a big increase across the board of listings and price reductions in our default solutions community. And this is probably a good telling sign. 18 of 20 of the listing appointments that our agents have been out on have led to a seller without equity, which leads them to a short sale. So that's going to be a change that we haven't seen in many of the markets. The FHA and VA delinquencies are up, and now all
Can I
the
interrupt you really
moratoriums are
quick on
over.
that, Joe?
Sure.
I think what's interesting to note about that conversation is these people were not expecting to be having a short sale conversation. In fact, they had significant equity. And because of the way that their rears were calculated and several other things, this was very unexpected. We'll put it that way. Vegas has been a hot market for a very long time. And so to be having those kind of conversations and that abruptly, it's notable.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So we're seeing that. We're seeing credit card defaults and auto defaults way up, and that's across the board. I have quite a few friends and family in Florida, and everybody's kind of feeling a little bit of a squeeze. So as we kind of hit this, we start to see a little bit of a shift, and it's really nothing to worry about. Your leadership team has you covered. I know they're taking all things into consideration to help you guys. Heidi, can you hit on some of the Florida numbers for us?
Sure. That we've got a stat up there that I think you guys can see, but Florida is tied. Now, again, there's a couple things on the back end that are going on. So yes, there's a significant amount of people that are coming out of forbearance, but there's another thing that happened. And the reason that the notice of defaults haven't been spiking up, it's because the government has been paying off, and maybe you want to dive into this a little bit more, Joe. But they've literally been paying people's mortgages that were in default. And there were also moratoriums for FHA and VA loans, and those are no longer in place. So now we're really going to see what the real notice of default numbers are truly going to be as a lot of these people are coming out of forbearance. But right now, Florida is tied for the highest state foreclosure rate with 1 out of 267 homes. Obviously, I'm kind of preaching to the choir on a lot of these things. You guys understand probably better than anybody the issues that you're having with the HOAs, the insurability, the warrantability of condos. Luxury markets often get hit significantly when markets shift. But there has been 29,000 new foreclosure starts. I would definitely be keeping an eye on notice of defaults at this point.
Yeah, all
Hey,
great
Dean, so I
points.
had a,
And
if I could interject for a second, I had just some of the stuff that shows up in my head, right? I just want to see if I can move this for our agents. So a lot of information, a lot of, holy crap, that's a lot of homes something's gonna happen. What's the urgency, or what do you foresee as the urgency from the lenders to get these properties on the market? Do they trickle in? Do they all just come pouring in at one time?
that's a great question. So now with the change in administrations, things are going to be a little different. The Trump administration is more pro business, and you know, a lot of these banks and funds are, I'm not going to say they were contributors because we don't know for sure, but you know, they take more of an active role of kind of moving forwards. So we're going to start to see more of these clamping down. I mean, and you can look on LinkedIn too. You're going to start to see these banks and servicers hiring default people and collections people. And that all brings it. I mean, it's going to start off slow and come through. The loss mitigation side is going to be the thing we see first. And that's going to be and we're seeing already an influx in broker price opinions.
Okay.
They're out there to try to evaluate some of these people and portfolios. And then we're going to start to see that loss mitigation side of, confronting homeowners, well, not confronting, but assisting homeowners with their options. And that's why that 6.6 million people coming out of that forbearance, they got like 9 options. They have to do something. And you know what? No one's out there really teaching them or counseling them. And that's such an open conversation because, we've had, some title and escrow companies gave us lists, and in some areas we don't have lists. And we kind of made it a kind of rule across the board. You don't know who's coming out of forbearance. So this is something that affects everyone. It could be agents in the market center. It could be people in your sphere, in your circle. So, kind of pulling up on these things and getting them out there and kind of talking the talk. It's going to help. It's going to help people, and they're going to know you're the go-to. So we're going to see it slowly come through.
And you led right
build into the summer.
No, you led right into the second part of that, which was that great. So we've got all this data, all this information, here it comes. And how do our agents utilize, real estate default solutions to help have more powerful conversations, identify those consumers, so they don't find themselves in unnecessary positions.
Heidi, that's a Heidi question.
Well, I can tackle that. So it's very multifaceted. We have a few different assessments that people can do, really just kind of going through their business. But we started where people are, because obviously we've got a ton of information on short sales, foreclosures, deed in lieu, BPO, like all the things. But what we're finding is, a lot of people don't have like the basics in place. So we've actually done, a lot of business planning and strategic planning, and what are the most important things. We've got an accountability circle. It's voluntary, and we'll just say there's not a lot of people feeling vulnerable and sharing, but everybody's working on different things at different paces. And so we're not trying to be everything to everybody, but we do have something for everybody, because there is so much as life develops. Everybody will kind of naturally fall into some certain niches. There's some people that are going to be, more drawn to, representing buyers or investors. The more you learn about short sales, the less you're going to want to do them. I can tell you that. And I was part of the group that wrote the short sale mastery course with KW in 2010. And I'll tell you what, it's funny. Other agents are actually your best source of leads eventually. But you still need a team. You still need people to help you with BPOs. You still need field inspections. You still need to know if this is a short sale that's even worth writing an offer on for your buyer. You need to know what questions are critical before you waste 6 months of your life. And most short sales didn't close, even when there were tons of so-called experts. I can't imagine what it's going to be like now, because we have so many agents that really have not been through, those significant real estate cycles. And I'll tell you what, they're bigger than bumps in the road. So basically in our community, we have a few different tiers. Part of the plan that we're offering the market centers is an Explorer tier, where you can get access to news articles, just random stats and stuff that we come across. We also have some core resources as far as templates and documents, access to past training. And then we have tiers that kind of move up. We've got a specialist, pro, and elite tier. And that really just depends on how much information you want, how much you can consume, and how much you can implement, and how much one-on-one help you need. So for our elite members, we actually go through and help them build their REO resume. We just did a training on, what's important, what matters. What do you do if you don't have experience? And by the way, what should you be hurrying and doing so that you're prepared? Because I'll tell you what, there's a ton to learn and there's a ton of things to do. And even if you think that you've been in the real estate business for 20 years and you have it all together or whatever, I guarantee if you go through and you're really being honest with yourself about whether your systems and tools and processes are going to be scaled, and you're prepared to answer a lot of hard questions, and you've got systems in place that are designed to work with short sales or people that are in trouble, you know, it's going to be too late. So it's not, you know, it's not like critically urgent, but I do feel a real pressure and urgency on.
It is important, Heidi. It's important for agents, which is why I asked you and Joe to be here today, because I think it's important that agents understand things are shifting, things are changing. And whether or not there's equity in a property and or it's a short sale, it is a sensitive conversation. It is a different approach. And we need to be skilled up on how to do it. And so we have on the screen ways for them to get involved in the default solutions community. And I know in the chat group, we've also put the a link so that they can link up and get more information. And for the Market Center specifically, we're going to have you guys invite you back to do that Market Center training where more agents can get involved. But I know you did this as a favor last minute, and I so appreciate the both of you guys joining us and getting on here so that we could get the word out to everybody.
No, we appreciate you, and we appreciate you like looking up and paying attention. And we want to, you know, we want to help, you know, and contribute in the ways that are unique to your market centers too. So if there's any particular tools, I'm also an app developer and super techie. So if we don't have what we need, I literally just make it.
Smile on our Market Center tech trainer here.
Yay, yay. Okay, well, make sure I get your email too, so we can get you guys added in our community. But yes, and reach out to Joe and I on that little QR code. There's a link to a sneak peek that we're doing on Friday, and we bumped that up so that you guys could attend. So hopefully, and we'll go through like a little bit of training and, you know, more about, you know, the resources and all that stuff. And then there's also a discount coupon on there too. 25% off any of the memberships for the first 3 months. So anybody that signs up in the next 2 weeks will get that too.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Market centers that are part of our L50 organization, please look out for any upcoming trainings held by KW Default. Heidi, Joe, thank you guys so much for everything, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye,
Thanks
team.
for having us.
Awesome. All right, team. Now that we moved from that, let's move back into what's sort of happening, what's driving the growth in our state. You know, we've been talking for the last several years about the growth, the net migration, both domestically and internationally. And this was just a quick little stat that came up that I was able to grab a hold of last week that talked about sort of where we were and how we ended 2024. Net international, not domestic, but international migration from the Census Bureau. Dade County, 123,000, almost 124,000 new net residents internationally. Broward County did capture just under 60,000. So about 50% is the number in Broward as compared to Dade. So again, this was still a very large segment of the growth that we experienced. Now, with the new policies that are going into place, we'll see in a few months how that actually affects, because this does affect our real estate markets.
You know why I'm smiling? Because I think that graph should have been blue, white, and blue. Just saying. Anybody say messy?
Yeah, how much, I would love to see by country, right? How
Yeah.
much came from Argentina, the growth we've had from, I mean, we've always attracted Argentina, but the growth we've had. So we just need a few more sports players. So if you're out there and you're listening, and maybe you want to play for Inter Miami or, hey, the Dolphins, listen,
Hey,
let's not talk
eventually
about
we're
the
gonna
draft. We're gonna have a different conversation. I'm not talking about
It's
football.
not for today.
people.
I got it.
We're not talking about that. All right, here's some the risks that we're looking at in 2025. So we've got some unpredictability, which is what you see showing up in the consumer confidence, right? We've got trade challenges. We've got immigration policy changes. We've got regulation or deregulation that's happening, which we'll see as a positive thing. But then we've got the spending, and that's the federal spending, and then the local consumer closing the pocketbook, the purse strings right now. So those are some our economic risks that happen nationally. Then number two comes up as natural disasters. And I do share this because of course we live in the hurricane belts. And so this year, what the forecasts are, good news is that the water is not as warm. That was a positive thing I actually saw in the last 2 weeks. The downside is that the forecasts are that this is a above average storm season and that the East Coast is expected to bear the brunt of the storm. So the East Coast is very broad. Maybe it goes along the coast and goes out to sea, be my hope. So there you go. And then number three is, of course, international conflict. And the truth is that the things that actually matter, now those are all economic risks and that we deal with every day, but every day people still have to live. They have to have a roof over their head. There are babies born every day. There are people who get married every day. Unfortunately, not all those marriages work out. And so then there's divorces.
And now you got resales.
Correct. And maybe before that, there was a baby, and so, or the child goes to college. So there's lots of reasons why real estate moves. And so what really matters is what is the cost, right? The cost to borrow the money, the price of that real estate, and are people employed, or do they have a way to earn money? Because remember, employment is one factor. A lot of self-employed here in South Florida. And that doesn't show up in those unemployment numbers. So that's always this weird factor as well. So pay attention for stores opening versus stores closing. All right, so that's all the
These are
national
fun.
stuff. Now, here we go into what's really happening in Broward and Dade. And so if you are here joining us month after month after month, where we go through this, this is going to be very familiar to you. But we are going to start this first slide you're looking at is Dade County, and what you are looking at is single family homes in Dade County. And so we're comparing the last 3 years, and you can see for the first quarter, we are down in the single family home market in Dade, just about 7.5%, 7.4% over last year. But home prices are still up. So we are up 3.6%. The increase in price has slowed.
I was gonna say, I think that's what's important to say is that because you hear the noise, you hear the stuff, you saw the slide with Gordon and some of those other areas where the sky is falling, right? Or at least that's the message that the news gives out. And slowing, I think, is a much more important phrase than that. Does that make sense?
Correct. It has normalized, like the price appreciation, 3.6% price appreciation is a historically normal number. The numbers that we were experiencing, that we were all loving, especially if you owned a piece of real estate into the double digits, it's just not normal. It's also not sustainable long term.
I think that's the other one, is that it's the important part of it's not sustainable. Although we liked it and we certainly enjoyed it as homeowners and consumers, not sustainable. That's
Correct.
important.
So median list to sales price here, and this what you're going to look at is for the properties that are going on the market in the MLS. This is what sellers are negotiating as far as their asking price to ultimate sales price. And again, these are properties that are on the MLS. So right now it's about a 7% discount, 6.5% off the seller's asking price to the ultimate sales price for where we're landing. So that's actually down from last year, which means the gap is widening between ask price and closing. Days on market, 84, which is up by about 2 weeks. So 16 days increase over and above last year. Again, this is the first quarter. So
I wonder if that extra time is the time needed to negotiate all the concessions.
yeah, a great question, Adrian. I mean, we're definitely having to sharpen our saw as far as negotiations are concerned, right? Whether you're in Dade or Broward, whether you specialize in, first-time home buyers, the middle of the market, or in our luxury or ultra luxury, you really have to, this is a skills-based market. Gone are the order-taking years. So we move over to Broward County, our single-family home market. And again, the number sales, the unit counts are down, but just slightly. So Broward, as far as unit counts comparison year over year, we are faring better in Broward than we are in Dade County, and that's down by just under 2%. The median sales price is about the same increase. It's up by 4% over the last year. So 630,000 being the median sales price. The negotiation, we are at 94% from the seller's asking price to the ultimate sales price. So it's about a 6% negotiation that is happening, which is down again another 1%. But here's where the big one is, and now our median days on market, we're up to 78 days on market. And that's median, that's to affect a sale. So 17 days above, last year, we're closing in on 3 additional weeks. So,
Craziest part about this slide is that when we started doing these numbers, I remember there was a time where that median sales price said 350,000.
yeah, well, I can take it back a little further. But we won't talk about that. All right, back over in Dade County, now we are in the condo and townhouse market. And so year to date, here's where you're gonna start seeing the unit counts are down. And again, remember, this doesn't include any new construction. These are only sales as reported in the MLS. So if a sale took place that was unreported outside of the MLS or a new developer sale, those would not be included. So if we would add some of that in, perhaps the numbers don't look like they do as far as unit counts, because again, that new construction may not be in there. So year-to-date sales down at 12%, median sales price up by 2.4% at $435. The negotiation, the gap widens a little bit further here. So from the asking price to the ultimate sales price, it's down to 92%. So it's about 7.5 to 8% range is what we're negotiating, which is down further 2 points. It's obvious the more inventory we have, the wider the negotiation gap starts to happen.
If I can for a second, I think this is one of those critical moments when we're just not just looking at data and hearing it and saying, all right, great, that sounds all fluffy and wonderful. But at the end of the day, if I'm sitting with a seller and I understand what this is trying to say, if I'm selling their condo townhouse, you know, who's, let's just use average price point 435, 7% is what they end up negotiating down. That, am I hearing that correctly? Then I've got to actually beat that curve in order to be the first one out of the gate. Otherwise, I sit on inventory market days worse than that 109.
We're gonna get to what that actually looks like, because that days on market is up by almost a month right now.
And that's days on market to affect the sale. So that's
That's not yeah.
correct. All right.
Yep.
Thought I read it.
You did read it right. All right, back over now. We are back in Broward County, and here we are back in our condo and townhouse market. And just as a reminder, because the data from the MLS polls as one category type, the condos and the townhomes get lumped in together. A lot of what you're seeing, and I'll cover it later on, is as a result of what's happening specifically in the condo market, in the multi-story building market, right? Sort of that 3-story and higher that are affected by the legislative changes as a result of Surfside. So here's where you're going to see sales are down 15.7%. That's unit counts over last year. Now, this is the one that has turned the tide. The trend has shifted, and this is the one category that we're actually seeing our median sales prices down. So team, in the condo and townhouse market, the prices dropped 2.5% from last year as far as reported sales are concerned. The median list to sales price, and you can see like all of the signs point to that, because the negotiation point is at almost 10%, right? 9.7% is what the seller is accepting as a ultimate sales price to affect the sale, which is a 4% decrease from last year. And our median days on market are up. We're now over 90 days on market, which is 36 additional days from last year. So really, really critical if you're going on a listing, and I'm going to ask John to join us here. John, what are some of the things that agents looking at this, we're looking at this, what do we need to ensure that we've got right?
Well, you know, you brought up a great point, Natascha. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here. John DiMartino, team leader over at KW Legacy in Weston. Natascha, when I'm looking at these stats, I'm thinking about when I'm with the client, I'm with the seller at the listing table, they're looking to us to be the local economist of choice, okay? They're looking to us to tell them and dictate what is the market saying, because when they're watching the news, they're already hearing data that's already 6 months expired. It's already too late, all right? These last couple slides, when we're just doing like a quick overview of the market, these last couple of slides, anytime you go on a listing presentation, print one of these up and take it with you. Show your clients, show the sellers that sales prices are down 15.7% over the last year, that the median days on market is at 97 days on market. All right, remember, they're looking to us. Gone are the days of the seller tells us what price that they want to list the house at, and we just say, okay, and take their order. All right, we really need to get the pricing right from the very beginning and set those expectations in the very beginning. That's the easiest way to prevent your listing from going expired. That's the easiest way to prevent your listings from having taken multiple price reductions. You know, I look at some of these listings, and especially the days on market, and I start thinking about stale bread. All right, I'm going to use the stale bread example. Think about if you're at a bakery, and a fresh loaf of bread comes out of the oven. It's warm, it smells great, everyone wants it. All right, buyers are rushing in to see it because it's new and it's exciting. But if that bread sits on the shelf for too long, people start to wonder, is it still fresh? Is there something wrong with it? What's going on with that bread? Why is it not
moldy bread, John? Thanks for the visual.
And I'm seeing
And-
breadcrumbs.
And then there's that, right? And now the same thing, Adrian, the same thing happens with homes. All right. If a listing sits on the market for too long, buyers start to assume that something's wrong with it, even if there's nothing wrong at all. The buyers, they tend to lose the excitement. The showings start to slow down. And then when the offers finally come in, they're usually lower. So bottom line, fresh listings create excitement while stale listings create that suspicion. And that's why pricing it right from the start and having those expectations conversation at the very beginning is so critical. It keeps that fresh out of the oven energy and it attracts the best buyers early. All right, but what you can do is take these last couple slides and print them and break with you. You like that?
Out of the oven energy, we
I
love
like
that.
that.
Nice hot toasty bread. John, thanks for sharing your insights, team. You'll see John again in a little bit. While we move into the next section that Davies is going to be talking about, I'm going to throw a poll up here. So I'd like to, if you're on as long as you're not driving, really want you to answer this. So the question is, it's all about pricing insights, right? How often are you doing a price reduction on your listings right now? So is it A, never, because you're a pricing ninja or a pricing Jedi? Sometimes because you try to nail it, but we sometimes miss the mark. Or more than you'd actually like to admit.
Keep them coming. We got like over 150 people on the call. 37 have answered, 41. Come on, keep them coming. Let's hear it. So far, the median is sometimes I try to nail it, but let's keep them coming. About half of you have answered. Oh my gosh, these numbers look so cool in real time.
Right?
It's like we're watching the stock market happen.
Well, I think we can.
Relate to it as the crypto market. I think we can
Yeah,
wrap
I
it
think
there,
we can,
right?
yeah.
All right. So the consensus, sometimes because you guys try to nail it. Great job.
70% was sometimes, 20% said more than you'd like to admit, but 10% of you are pricing ninjas.
So
love
I
that.
would love to see those of you that answered that you're a pricing ninja, put your name in the chat because we will reach out to you to do a pricing class for us.
Love that.
Don't
Alright.
scare them, Davies.
Hey, we got
Awesome.
our.
All right, Davies, you're gonna talk to us about, so now we've got a listing, or we're working on getting our listings up, and you've got a touch program you want to talk about.
Yes. So on the screen, you're gonna see a QR code. This QR code is gonna lead you to the KW Red Label store. It is a place where you can actually go order the MREA playbook. So I keep this bad boy in my bag, handy dandy, because not only do I teach the technology, but my job is to help grow your business, right? Using KW systems and models. And what some of my favorite pages of classes come right out of here. And the one that I want to talk to you guys about is the 60 Touch program, which is actually page 83 of the MREA playbook. And I like to refer to the exact page because it's important to know why I chose this. You know, we live in a world where you have Bath and Body Works who emails you 3-4 times a day. Doesn't matter what time of day, you're getting an email. Can everybody agree in the room that we get all of these emails? Yes, right?
1000%.
Exactly. So why?
I
are
always
you
know when the
afraid?
candles are on sale. I always know.
Exactly.
I like this so personal.
What I want you guys to think of is how can you be the Bath and Body Works of real estate? John mentioned earlier, you need to be the economist of choice, and I completely agree with that. The 60 Touch program entails of a few things. You got 36 emails. You have 4 items of value. That means a calendar, a notepad, an ice cream scoop. The Tello team does jar openers. Love those. Still have those in my
They're still coming
cabinet.
out of Chris's ears. You can't
We have
get rid of them fast enough.
12 direct mail pieces. So even if you're not farming in your area, you should be connecting with your database using direct mailers. 4 4 phone calls. So 1 call every quarter, and then 4 client appreciation events. Now, in the MREA playbook, that page 83, this is actually an agent. His name is Dave Hook. And I want you guys, when you order your book, or come and see me or ask me about it, we're also going to drop the 1-pager in the chat. So Nikki, if you can drop that in the chat for me. This is a layout of how this particular agent touches his database 60 times a year. Now, the reality, if you ask Cody Gibson, he'll tell you it's like 96 times a year. And honestly, the more the merrier. And if you provide value, you will not get unsubscribed. Don't be afraid to reach out and to connect with your people.
Awesome. I saw in the group chat real quick, you've got a fan out there. Cal's asking for a signed copy of that for
Ooh,
you.
who's asking? Khalid? Yeah. I will definitely give away my autograph whenever you guys want.
Love that. By the way, Davis, do you mind hold up your MREA playbook one more time? I
Yes.
just want to point something out. Go to the front page. I just want to point something. I couldn't help it. This is what I noticed. That is one weathered playbook.
Oh yeah, baby. It is used and abused. I even had to staple it together because I even have my little tabs and everything. It's just such an easy way to pull out prescriptions. You know, all of us have issues in our business somewhere or another, an opportunity. Well, this can help you with those opportunities that you think you have or that you know you have. So buy that book. It's definitely worth it. But I want to jump into something else. If I remember which keyboard I'm using. All right. So Miss Natascha, RE Tasker is one of our newest partners, and it's exactly what it sounds like, My Real Estate Tasker. So some of the services that My Real Estate Tasker can do for you is help with your listings, do marketing and promotion, client and buyer engagement, and database management. This is a paid-for service. It's a virtual assistant. I want you guys to think, oh my God, I have a listing. I need a listing to close package. Scan that QR code so you can be led directly to the website, okay? This is an on-demand service, which means if I need to have somebody put in my listing immediately into the MLS, and I'll give you an example of something that happened on Thursday with one of our agents in Bold. She got water in her port of the computer and was stressing out because she had to get that listing in. That is one of those opportunities where you can go ahead and hire them for that activity and they'll get the job done for you. The team behind RE Tasker has worked with Natascha for over 20 years now. Not just with Natascha, but with the Tello team as well. And we're talking when the Tello team was at its peak, you know, farming, REOs and all that stuff. So they are definitely a great team that can help you when you need any on-demand type of service. And you can always contact me for more information, but scan that QR code. We'll also put the link inside of the chat. So that way you guys can set that up. And keep in mind, if you are not part of KW, that is okay. We work with every single brokerage when you work with RE Tasker. So guys, anything else on RE Tasker?
The only thing I would add is it's kind of like Uber, you pay per piece.
Yep.
You're not obligated for any long-term contract or any minimum number of anything per month. That's what I would share.
Absolutely.
Especially in this environment where we're kind of conserving resources.
Yes.
Think that.
I want you guys to think, man, you know what? I'm not really good at setting up an email campaign. Now you have an opportunity to hire someone just to do that. And they are fully trained in command. So, hello. All right. Thank you so much,
Good
team.
stuff.
We are moving on.
All right, let's move to where the market is as of the end of March. So really, this was a snapshot of what was in the MLS as an active listing on March 31st. So right before these stats kind of come out. And what you're going to notice is the increase year over year, right? We talk about part of the challenge has been the shortage of housing in Florida in general, in the country, but specifically in Florida. Well, here you're going to see your active listings, Dade County single family, your active listings up 41%, Broward up just slightly above 42%. Then you can take a look at the screen by price point, and the price points that you work, you're going to notice the increases that are taking place in those price points that you work. When we move over to the condo markets, and it'll take a look at your active listings. This is, again, the numbers of actives as a percentage from year over year look pretty similar. The condo and townhouse market in Dade County up 45%. And over in Broward County, again, 45.6%. So 45.4, 45.6. But you can see the difference. We started to see this increase in inventory in this category type show up last year. So now you're going to start seeing them level out a little bit as far as that's concerned. All right, we would love, so you've got listings. You can clearly see your listing counts have almost doubled, right? Or at 45%,
Yep.
no matter what product type, which means we have to become better at marketing those listings, because the name of the game, yes, is pricing, but it's also marketing. So I'd love to invite Danielle, our team leader in the Pembroke Pines Market Center, to join us to talk about one of the ways we can market a listing.
Yeah. Thanks, Natasha. Welcome. Hi, everybody. I am so honored to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to share. We, as the Market Center, and of course with L5L, is doing a great job helping you market those listings that you have through our newsletters and also advertising them on social media. However, what we want to share and what we want to encourage you is, are you doing a 7th level open house on marketing those listings that you're getting? Want to know what that is? That's not a problem. If you scan that QR code right there, the MREA playbook has how to host a 7th level open house. Meaning, when you get a listing, you don't just say, hey, we are having an open house, come on by. There's ways to definitely get that house ready to have the best open house so that you are marketing it right, doing the best for your client, which is a seller, and attracting the most buyers and or more sellers in the area for that. As it is you have to do a pre-market of the open house. What is that? That pretty much means are you doing phone calls? Are you circle prospecting in the neighborhood, inviting everyone to your open house? Are you telling your database that you have a new listing that has come to the market? Are you door knocking in the neighborhood also, letting them know that you have a great property that you like to share? Who do you know is willing to come, who wants to live in that neighborhood? But those are a few things that's in that playbook that we have for you to let you know how to do a 7-level open house. Once you have the open house, are you getting it ready for the open house? Are you opening the doors? Are you awakening that house to get it ready? Such as turning on the lights, making it look good, making it look fresh, making it smell good to attract the buyers when they do come in. So these are a few things that we're touching on how to market that open house well and to get that listing sold. We're not here just to show houses, we're here to sell houses. So I encourage you, tap on that 7-level open house QR code and get that playbook to sell your home today. That's what I have to share, Matt.
Love that.
Love that mic drop. We don't just want to listen, because we want to secure a successful sale so that the seller can move on with their life and that we can welcome a new buyer to enjoy the house that seller enjoyed for all those years. All right, Danielle, thank you. All right, let's move into pending. So if we do it right, we actually get to put that property in pending. And so what you can see here is maybe the industry is not doing some things right now. So because our pending sales are down, and by the way, this is indicative of what the future then starts to show us for closing. So right now, our pending listings are down. In Dade County, in single family, it's down about 15%. Broward trailing that number, down just about 10%. We are going to bring Greg Taylor on the screen as I move into the condo market. I just want to share a little bit on the condos, and I'm going to ask Greg to share what they're actually seeing as far as pending. So we look at the condo market, what you're going to notice here in Dade County, the condos are, unit counts are down in Dade, just 21.8%. In Broward, the unit counts are actually down more, down 23%. So Gregory Taylor Title, are you here, sir?
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me. I apologize. I'm battling a nasty little head cold, so not my normal self. Yes.
You sound a little nasal, but we hear you.
Last night was not fun, but so yeah, Natascha, again, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, everything you guys have been seeing, we're seeing sort of on the title end. I think it goes back to the buyer sentiment. We're seeing skittish buyers. We're seeing a high cancellation or higher cancellation rate, I should say, of orders. where buyers just simply backing out during the inspection period, but like I said, a much higher rate. I'm also hearing from the agents with a lot more appraisal issues. Property's just not simply appraising. So that's the other issue that we're kind of seeing there. So it kind of mirrors everything you've been mentioning.
Greg, one of the things we discussed was the condo and HOA assessments. What can you tell us about, you know, kind of what we're seeing there, what we need to make sure an agent gets done, that we do not go under contract before or we go under contract, but we don't close before we've got something done?
Right. Good point. It's actually imperative. If you have a seller side in a condo, you must get those condo docs to the buyer's agent. All right. That is not just, it is a Florida statute requirement. All right. And our condo rider mirrors the Florida statutes. In addition to that, due to Surfside and the passing of laws, which now nearly all condos are going to, are going to have this now by the end of last year. You need to comply with the milestone inspection reports and the SEERS, the structural integrity report study, and deliver those to the buyer or the buyer's agent. Okay. And if not, these are easy ways for buyers to back out of deals because it carries the same weight as delivering condo docs, where they have 3 days to review them after they have received all the docs. So make sure you're checking off the proper boxes. I get lots of calls. What boxes do I check or whatever? Guys, the turnover inspection report for condos that have been in existence for a while, doesn't apply. That's for, the newer condos. Okay. Most of us are going to be focusing on the milestone and the SEERS. And the reality is that most of the condos would have already had to have that done by the end of last year. And sorry, real quick, Natascha, that, guys, the milestone inspection report and the SEERS report, that's what's triggering the big assessments. Okay. SEERS because they don't have enough reserves, milestone because the property needs work. The condo needs work.
And no, 100%, Greg. And what you're, often I ask you and I ask Mortgage what you guys are seeing, because you sometimes see it before it shows up in the real numbers, right? You're seeing it live as these things are transpiring. One of the other conversations we had was repairs by licensed professionals. Why don't you share a little bit about that piece?
Yeah, guys, if we're going to put repair language in an addendum in the contract, make sure you write down that it's going to be done by a licensed professional. All right. You can't have a handyman doing electrical work, replacing electrical panels, things like that. You got to have it done by a licensed professional. God forbid we have an issue with a repair and we have, a major issue from someone that, a handyman went out there and did the work. There's going to be a lot of finger pointing and a lot of lawsuits.
Good point.
Great points, Greg. Well, we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for adding that to our people. One of the things you talked about was buyer reluctance or buyer hesitancy. So team, we have a poll as we shift out of Greg and into the next piece of it. And we want you to answer this. So the 3 questions that are on your screen right now is, what is the biggest fear for your consumer right now? Is it A, 1, interest rates, 2, overpaying or underselling, or 3, insurance and taxes? We know that these are 3 things we hear about. Curious what the group as a whole is getting from the consumer.
It's like watching a race.
It is like watching a race, and this one's really close, where the other poll was really different. Wow. Okay.
Look at that.
Let's see.
Look at that. That just changed.
All right. So, well, I was going to say, okay, so we're done,
wait,
and
more
there's
people are
more coming
answering.
in. So some of you taking a little longer to jump in. All right, we're going to
There
end
we
the
go.
poll now. It looks like we're almost at slightly ahead.
Mhm.
Interest rates is number 1, but by a very small margin. Number 2 is underpaying or overselling, or underselling rather. And number 3 is insurance.
Natascha, one thing real quick, because it's directly related to what you just mentioned. I literally had a call this morning from a buyer from New York. They were anticipating insurance to be around $3-4 grand. And the quotes they're getting is anywhere from 16 to 25,000.
That's different.
Yeah,
And they're losing their mind.
Yeah, I think the earlier we can get the consumer in front of our insurance partners, the better off they are going to be, especially during the inspection period, to find out what the insurance is going to be, especially if our roofs are older or we're very close to the coastline.
Right.
Yeah, oh, not a good story. Thanks, Greg.
Listen,
We were
sometimes I'm
looking
the
for some positivity from you, sir.
bearer of bad news sometimes. What can I tell you?
But you say it with a smile. Thanks, feel better.
Thank you, guys.
We added the link to Gregory Taylor Title to their website. You can find more information about the company as well as Greg on there. Thanks again, Greg. We appreciate you. And
Awesome.
let's keep going.
All right, let's talk about what is actually selling in our numbers of sold. So if you look here, we're gonna move out of the condo. Let's move back to single family. All right, awesome. All right, here's where you're gonna see the percentage up or down. The good news is we have some green in here, finally a little bit of green. And green means a good positive number. That means we've got some additional sales in that category. What we did, again, like the other slides, is it's now broken down by price points. All right, so we were in the sold category and we were still in the single family homes before our tech fluke happened. And what you will notice, as I shared, there are some categories where we had an increase in units sold. However, there are also several categories where the unit sale counts are down. And it is not because we don't have less inventory necessarily in those, which is often what you'll hear from us. However, those are very interest rate sensitive price points. And in the interest rate sensitive price points, you will notice that there are unit counts that are down. So you'll see Broward and Dade as where we're at. Davey, sorry, do we have a screen back yet?
In just a moment.
Okay. So I don't want to talk over something they cannot see because we're going to move into the condo and townhouse market. And so as we move into the condo and townhouse market, I just want to share that again, the unit counts are down 12% in Dade County and 15.7% in Broward County. And so what that's going to tell us, and you should be able to see it now on your screens, what that's telling us is sort of the future of where things are headed as far as the housing market, and specifically you'll see it in the condo markets. All right.
I can't help but point out that if I'm selling property, I want to be in that $4 million bracket. They both have exponential growth. One had 17 and the other one's got 26% growth.
Yep.
What?
Those were the two price categories where we saw the growth take place in the condo markets. All right, now we're going to move on to what we need to do in the number of price reductions that it's taking, or the percent of price reductions. So we're going to turn it over to John DiMartino is going to rejoin us. And now we have Jenny Aline also joining us, our team leader in Miami Beach.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Great seeing you again. Jenny, always a pleasure seeing you. Let's talk about price reductions.
I thought we were going to talk about stale bread.
Uh-oh. that freshly baked loaves of bread, right?
Yep, baking it freshly baked. All right.
So what are you seeing in terms of price reductions? And before you answer that, one thing to point out, these are units that have had price reductions, not necessarily the units that need price reductions. All right. So remember, this is the ones that have already reacted to the market and made their adjustments on the price. But Jenny, tell us, what are you seeing in price reductions in Dade and Broward County?
Exactly. So what we're looking at here are single family homes that have already had price reductions. And so you can see in the different price brackets, there's been reductions, a couple brackets that stayed steady, but overall there's been listings that have had price reductions. So overall, what we're seeing in the single family space is 51.3% reductions. That means more than half of the listings that are hitting the market are having to do a price reduction. What does that tell us, John, about the way that these agents are pricing these properties?
Well, I think it all goes back down to that initial conversation when we're sitting down at the listing table with them, when we're sitting down at their kitchen table talking about the price. It's like I said before, gone are the days of taking the order of what the price is going to be. I've sat at listing tables before, going back and forth for 25, 30 minutes, maybe almost an hour, just discussing $5,000 or $10,000 difference. Because in this market, especially now, pricing it right the first time, it really matters more than ever before.
That's exactly right. And the language we use and that we perfect for having those conversations is always going to be better than avoiding the conversation about price and just taking the overpriced listing. It's really important that we have the conversations up front and we educate the consumer in the process. So what we're seeing now on the screen is the price reductions that have happened with condos, right? So even more of a jump, we're seeing a bigger increase in how many listings have taken reductions, and we know why that is, right? All the changes that we have going on with the condos, but we're seeing 54.9% increase in Miami-Dade and 60.3% in Broward County.
You know, one of the things that you hear a lot from when it comes to sellers, you hear a seller, anytime you talk about reducing the price or pricing it down here when they want it to be all the way up here, they say, I don't want to give my house away. All right. And one of the things that I tell them is, you know, it's actually impossible to give your house away. You can actually list your house for $1, right? And the amount of buyers, myself included, that's going to go in and throw their name into the hat, they're going to start bidding on top of each other, and it's going to bring it back up to market value. So it is actually impossible to just give the house away. And that's why, again, why it's so important to price it right in the very beginning, and be confident in yourself when you're having the conversations about pricing. All right, when you go in there and share with them that in today's market right now, what is it, 60% of listings required a price reduction? That says something. Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, do you want to be one of those homes that's sitting on the market month over month over month, taking reduction after reduction after reduction? Or do we just want to get the home price to sell, and that way we can actually get it sold and closed within the next 45 days?
Absolutely.
Get
So the
comfortable having those conversations.
the conversation with the seller should really be, the market will tell us where to price the home. We can start here, right? So if you have a seller that's still kind of leaning on the higher end of that price bracket that you gave them, we can start here, Mr. Seller, but this market is going to tell us if we priced it right or not. So even if you do have to take it at a price where you feel like it'll perform better at a lower price, have the conversation early on, guys. Get that price adjustment documents already signed and ready to go, so they understand if the results we're seeing, if the showings aren't coming in, if we're not getting offers by this time period, we need to pivot, and we need to pivot fast.
Absolutely, put it right into your listing agreement. These slides right here, it's on failed listings. Jenny, what's a failed listing?
A failed listing is a listing that didn't sell. It's an expired. It's a canceled listing. It's a listing that didn't close.
Yeah.
Why does that happen, John?
Because it's the sellers, they're just not reacting, and by the way, the agent is not reacting as well. The agent and the seller are not reacting to what the market is telling you. If you're on the market for 3-4 weeks and you haven't had any showings, the market is saying something. The market is telling you that we are rejecting this price. You need to act. If not, it becomes a failed listing essentially. And what we're seeing right now in both Broward and Dade single family homes, just shy of half of the listings that are on the market fail. That's scary. Just over half of the listings, and that's because of price. That's because of marketing, but most of it happens because of the pricing.
And so for our agents that sometimes get it right from that poll, right, or pricing Jedis, this is an opportunity for you guys. That's more than half the market of the half of the listings hitting the market are overpriced and they're having to come off the market. They're not selling. So you can come in as a professional and now say, hey, Mr. Seller, here's how we can get it right this time. And you can help them price it correctly from the beginning. In
the chat box, Howard just said that price overcomes everything. And it's the biggest, that's so true. All right. Remember the billboards, we buy ugly houses. All right. You can have the ugliest house, but if you price it the right way, it's going to sell, and it's going to sell quickly. Guys,
well,
in this market,
in many cases, when you price it competitively, what ends up happening? You get more showings, more people show up to the open house, you get multiple offers that you can now simultaneously have conversations with, negotiate, and potentially sell for over asking price. So you can still get your seller to that price.
Jenny, John, I wanted to just put something out there real fast. So I know that our agents, and I say our agents, I'll just use agent sentiment across the agent population. They hear price it right, we've got to get the pricing right. And they may even have become a little desensitized to that language. I want to, are you able to just share a little bit of light in that the price adjustments to chase at these $5, $6, $7, $10,000 marks, because that's about what we're seeing in some cases, even smaller numbers than that. It's not enough to get ahead of the curve. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, you've got to make a significant enough price reduction, and in the coming slides we're gonna get into that a little deeper as far as what that percentage should be. But you're looking at least a 10% price reduction in order to make an impact and go into a new pricing bracket that's gonna garner the interest of the buyers that you probably missed altogether because you were overpriced.
I knew an agent once that what she would do is every day she would reduce by $500, and she would reduce it every day by $500 just so it stays fresh on the hot sheets. And yes, that is going to keep refreshing, and it's going to flood everyone's inbox with this. The home that you liked had a price reduction. However, it's not enough to move the needle. It's not enough to actually create buyers that are saying, I need to jump on this now before someone else jumps on this house that I really like and it's gone.
That's exactly right.
So the failed listings here in condos, it's the same exact thing, guys. We're going. If the last few years has been a speed-based market, it's been speed to lead. As the lead comes in, we have to be the first ones to respond to them. We have to be the first ones to get face to face or belly to belly with them. That has changed. Now we're in a skill-based market. Now is the time where we need to we need to trust our training. We need to trust our coaching. We need to trust our instincts of the skills of what is it like to price the home right in the beginning. Well, what does price the home right even mean? All right. One of the things that I do, especially in the very, very beginning, doing a CMA or doing pricing strategy, this is a skill. This is a skill that we constantly have to hone. We constantly have to keep practicing and so forth. What I would do, and this is something I recommend to everyone on this call, all right, do a CMA or do a supply and demand analysis on every single property that you visit. All right, the first couple might take you 45 minutes, might take you an hour to do, but do it over and over and over and hone that skill, sharpen that saw so that you can do a good supply and demand analysis in 5-10 minutes. And then you have that you can present to your client and speak confidently enough on it so that you can actually say these things to your seller.
Well, and something else that I'd love to see, when you are pricing a property, guys, get the opinion of a peer. We just had Jackie Ellis come to our market center and go through her listing workshop. And one of the things that she had the group do was audit the price that somebody else's listing was at. And we all gave different pricing opinions and overall landed at the same price, and we were pretty close. But you now can go back to your seller and say, Mr. Seller, I ran this price bracket or this price recommendation by a panel of my peers, and this is what we came up for you. This is what we came up with. And now you're showing up like an expert, guys, and that's the key. That's the key in this market.
Awesome. Guys, we do have another poll because we want to keep the engagement up. So this is going to launch right now on your screen. So what is the most common mistake that sellers are making? Are they overpricing, under prepping the home, or are they just waiting too long to list?
You're not hiring me.
I like that. All right,
Yeah, it
let's
should have been an
see.
option.
Wow, overpricing. You guys are definitely all choosing that same answer. Love this. Okay. So we have about 65 of you. I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll right now. So 82% of you say overpricing, and stats matter, guys.
You know what, I see that, I hear it, because it came out as that question, and then my only rebuttal is the consumer overpricing, or are we owning that price and we overpriced it? That's it.
You've got to be skilled in having that conversation with the seller from the beginning. Like I said, the language we use matters more than the conversation we're avoiding just to take the listing. Perfect that conversation and understand how to run all this data by them. Here's a great slide to help you do that. So John, what is this slide telling us?
So this is actually a really good slide that shows what the real story is. Now this is Broward, this is Dade County single family homes, and it shows the total amount of homes that have closed, which in this case is 2,300. And those homes that have closed, this is in all of them, 93.8% of sale price to their original list price ratio. And on average is about 84 days on market. Now, if we break that down into who had price reductions and who did not make any price adjustments, we're seeing those who had the price adjustments was 89% of that sales price to list price ratio. However, if you priced it right the first time, those homes are selling at 97.7%. Just that stat alone. Mhm.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, if you could break that down even further, a lot of the homes are actually expiring right now or canceling. They're coming off the market, and most of them are relisting with another agent. Homes that have relisted with a new agent and had a price reduction are selling at 88% of their original list price. And it's taken 164 days for those homes to close. All right. However, the homes that Jenny's taking, the listings that Jenny's taking, she's pricing them right the first time. She's aggressively marketing it. She's selling that home in 98%, 98% of the original list price and selling it in just over 30 days. All right. This right here, if you could show this to your seller, right, and just show them this is where we're at. This is the reality of the situation. This isn't the Bible according to John and Jenny. This is actual market stats of what's happening right now in the Tri-County area. Jenny, before we jumped onto the call, I actually logged onto the MLS, and I just wanted to take a look and see what Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach is actually doing as of today.
What'd you find, John?
Over the last 7 days, there were 518 expired single-family homes.
Yeah.
518, right? In addition to that, there's 4,200 price reductions and 500 and, I'm sorry, let me take that back. 518 expired, 806 canceled. That's 1,300 new pieces of business that's available right now for every one of our agents out there to take.
And where can they find those, John?
RedX, Land Voice, Vulcan 7. You can go onto the MLS, click where it says expired, just going to give you the addresses. Pick the homes, pick the neighborhood of the homes that you want to sell. Pick the price point of the homes that you want to sell. All right, look at the pictures and see the homes that you can look at and say, this home is beautiful. This should be able to sell, and go knock on their door. Everyone else is calling and emailing and sending a postcard. Go knock on their door. Be different.
Be different. And one more place in case our L5L agents don't remember is Circle. So we have our Vulcan list that's updated daily. It's on Circle, guys. There's no reason you're not calling these people. You are not bothering them. You're calling to help. Their home, they raised their hand. They wanted to sell their home and it didn't happen. These are sellers that are asking for your help. You guys are skilled, more skilled than the average agent out there. Take those skills and put them to work, please.
Jenny, I would be remiss if I did not throw this out there. Make sure that you're communicating with the consumer in a TCPA
compliant way. Absolutely.
Amen to that. And guys, these reports are also found in Circle, so long as you are part of our organization. And if you are not part of one of our KW offices, contact one of our team leaders because we would love to have you join our family.
Absolutely. All right, John. So what can this slide help the agents do in a listing conversation?
This is actually one of my favorite graphics that I draw on the back of a napkin. I've drawn it on the back of my listing. I've just had this in part of the conversation, and it shows the difference between how it's priced versus the condition versus the competition. Okay, so on the left side of the axis, you have the pricing. Are you priced at market value? All right, and then how high over market value are you pricing? And the bottom axis is the condition of the home, and the condition as it relates, compared to the competition that's out there. So on the left side, it's better than the competition. On the right side, it goes worse than the competition. This right now in this market, especially right now, if we do not want to be one of those handful of homes that are actually selling, in this case, it shows 25% of the homes that are actually selling. We need to price the home in the bottom third in terms of pricing, and we need to be in the best third in terms of condition. All right, this is a pricing competition, a pricing war, and a beauty contest all at the same time. All right, and now that goes the other way as well. If our condition is not as great, or it's not as good as the others out there, that's fine. It can be a little bit less. However, then we need to rely on the pricing even more. Okay, so that bottom, what you see in the green, that shows what is the what's in the market. Everything else, I know it says it's chasing the market. Everything else, as far as I'm concerned, is considered out of the market.
Yeah, so that's over 60% of the market. Almost 70% of the market is just getting it wrong. What an opportunity for our agents with the pricing skills that they've acquired, our Jedis out there, to really take some market share.
Yeah. And Jenny, before they go on to the next slide, that one section in the middle, that 26% where they're chasing the market, talk to us about that that one middle area? What's dangerous about that one middle area?
That's a scary place to be, because when you're chasing the market, you end up making a bigger reduction than you originally thought, right? So if you're chasing the market, you're probably going to be either at that 80% mark that we showed you in the previous slide. You're going to be selling for a lot less. Whereas if you're completely out of the market and make an immediate pivot and price correctly and adjust to what the market is telling you, you have a better shot of selling your home and not becoming an expired listing, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So this is for the condos, for the condo market. So the same slide, condo market, you're seeing that to a little over 2,500 homes close at 92.4% of the original list price. And same thing, guys, we're seeing the difference here between the price reduction and when you're chasing the market, what like the previous slide just showed, and when there's no price reduction, and it's significant, right? So when you're doing one price reduction, you're looking at 87.6% of the original list price versus 96.7%, right? So again, very powerful slide to show your clients, especially when it comes to condos. If their intention is to sell, if they're motivated to sell right now, this slide carries the conversation. Mr. Seller, here's what the market is telling us. If we price it right, you are going to get 97.2% of the list price, and you're going to set it in less time than in any other scenario. So let's price this property right and get your home sold for you.
Absolutely. So next slide, please. The Miami-Dade condo market shows that green box, that what's in the market is even smaller. And the other in Broward, it showed 25%. This shows that the box of what's in the market is only 16% of the active homes that's out there. It's never been more critical, not in my career, that we price the homes right from the very beginning and actually stay in the market. But get comfortable with this diagram, drawing it out, because you can have this very easy conversation right there, like I said, drawing on the back of a napkin, explaining why you got to be in the bottom third in terms of pricing and the best third in terms of condition.
Well, and another thing that I'll add, specifically because this is about condos, and I think this is why you see such a smaller number, we've got to do our research, guys, and our due diligence in advance. We've got to have great lender partners and great title partners that are going to help us do the due diligence and assess what's really going on in those condos, so that when we price that, we're strategic in what credits we want to give, or what the seller, we're having conversations with the seller. Hey, Mr. Seller, this is something that you can offer. Here's something we can do about those special assessments coming on. Because if they've got to sell it, guys, and they are motivated to sell it, it's your job to find a way to get them to that finish line. So partner with great lender, like a great lender partner and title partner, so that you have multiple experts that can look at that data with you and tell you, listen, this is the strategy that's going to get that home sold, or that's going to get you over the finish line.
Absolutely. And I know Adrian had brought up the brackets. Now, when we talk about brackets, this is what I know about working with buyers. A buyer is going to say, show me homes up to $400,000. And then I show them the homes, and then they don't see something that they like. So they're like, you know what, let's bump it up to 450. All right. So then we start looking at 450. They don't see anything. They're like, let's bump it up to 500. All right. Now, when we say strategically pricing, we want to price the home so that it actually goes into the next bracket. If we're priced at let's say we're priced at 510 and we take a $5,000 price reduction, we're at 505. All right. We're still in that same bracket, and the buyer that would buy the house for $500,000 is not even seeing your listing. All right. The best place to put that at that point would probably be at 500. So we can see the buyers that are buying from 5 to 550 and the buyers that's going from 450 up to 500. Consider those brackets when you're taking when you're making a price reduction, or just coming up with the price at all. You want to take those brackets take them into consideration.
Absolutely.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for all of your insight. Teams, reach out to your team leaders. They know how to use these reports. So if you don't, set up a meeting, because they can absolutely show you how it is that you can use these reports to win those listings and to make sure that you get the home sold at the right price. With that being said, we're going to move on to the next slide. Jenny, John, XOXO, thank you guys for everything you do, and we will see you guys soon. All right, Rich, we're going to bring you to the spotlight, bud. So make sure you are, perfect.
I was going to say, speaking of lender partners that you love and appreciate, Rich, it's been a while. Have I told you I appreciate you?
It's been too long, Adrian.
Love it. All right, Rich,
Cider,
what are we looking at here?
What are we looking at here? We're looking at year-to-date purchases by financing method for both single-family, well, just for single-family detached, but both for Miami and Broward counties here. And, you know, something that stands out that we might not think about very often is the role cash still plays in the market here, right? Which is nowhere near as high as it has been in previous years, but is still pretty up there. And then also the role of conventional financing, right? So, you know, conventional is obviously it's the Fannie Freddie financing that everyone's very well aware of. I think especially when it comes to condos, and we'll look at that, I think, on the next slide here, you know, there is non-warrantable condo financing that gets lumped into conventional financing as well. So that's definitely going to, you know, play a role in the type of financing that's available for you all. You know, FHA, I know it shows that there's not a lot of FHA financing happening in the market, but I think that that's more of a price point issue than it is, you know, people just don't qualify for FHA or properties don't qualify for FHA. So, you know, no one should be afraid of FHA. Just know that I think in your market specifically in Broward and Miami, you know, that's price point specific, because FHA, your max financing right now is up to just under 525,000. And, you know, I think a lot of your properties are probably priced above that. So your buyers are outside of the FHA financing pool.
Right. Rich, in an effort to be brief, like I know that, you know, we teach our agents and they're very well versed in the different types of loan programs. And one of my concerns is when we partner with good loan officers, good loan partners, is let the loan officer, loan partner establish what loan fits that consumer best. I know that because we're armed with more information, I'm going to be very delicate when I say this, that also makes us more dangerous. And that's not necessarily in a good way, right? So then we start promoting, hey, we hear that so-and-so is offering money on the table. We hear that such and such a product is giving up to $35,000 money back. And I don't have any, I'm actually happy that our agents are better informed than most at providing that information. The concern I have is, are we inadvertently touting a program that doesn't necessarily fit that consumer? And then we put ourselves or put you guys in a position of, oh crap, now we've got to throttle back. That doesn't fit. You guys are the bad guys and we don't look like the good guys because we promoted something that never fit. So I guess all I'm offering is let the loan officer fit the program best for the consumer. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, for sure. Let us talk with the clients, with the buyers, and figure out what their goals are and what the right program would be for them. And then let's work together, you know, us and the agents, to figure out how we're going to use that financing to help negotiate the right, you know, contract price, seller concessions, you know, all those different factors that, you know, are going to go into putting a successful deal together for somebody.
Love it.
Awesome. Thanks, Rich. We appreciate you. And remember, guys, Top Flight Home Loans, you want to reach out to them. We have Zyder, we have Darrow, we have JC, we have Rich. They're all representing our market centers. So make sure you reach out to them. Rich, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask Jenny to actually join us again to walk us through this, because team, one of the things we do every single time we get together is to teach you how important it is not just to offer a buyer or seller an estimated cost sheet, but right now, this is your estimated cost sheet with carrying costs involved. And when we look at exactly what we shared with you over the last hour plus and the data, this is so critically important, the case for getting it right. So Jenny, you want to walk our team through what they're looking at and how they would utilize this slide?
Absolutely. So we started the conversation just before where we were talking about having the pricing conversation, talking about the brackets and why they need to price a certain way. You're showing them stats. You're showing them what happens when they're chasing the market and when they list too high. So this slide will actually help you show them, quantify that, and show them what it actually means to price the property right for their property. And so what you're seeing on the screen is on the right-hand side, this is the price that you're suggesting. So in this particular instance, it's 700,000 and the seller's telling you, no, I want to list at 769,900. So you're going to show them that, Mr. Seller, you're going to be selling your home. The likelihood is that you're going to sell your home for 86.4% of the listing price based on the data that you've already gone over, which was on the previous slides. If we price it at 700,000, you're going to get 97.4% of your asking price. And then what you're going to do, and what this is actually showing you, is the net difference. Even though you're pricing lower, you're going to spend less time on market. So by listing it at 700,000, you're selling it within, the likelihood is that you're going to sell it within 39 days versus 246. So that's 207 days fewer. And then the most important part is that you're going to get from them the actual holding costs that they have. Mortgage, insurance, what are they paying in terms of HOA if there's an HOA, and all of those carrying costs. And you're going to show them that by being in the market for 6.9 months less, they're actually keeping $27,000 more. So not only are they have a higher likelihood of getting it at the price, 97.4% closer to the list price, they're actually saving money because they're selling it much sooner. So in this particular instance, you can have all these numbers already plugged in for them, and you can show them that by listing it right, you're going to actually save and keep $44,000 more in your pocket than if you would have listed it for the higher price. Because the overall thought process of a seller is, well, let me list it at this price, because if I list it here, when buyers start trying to negotiate with us, we're going to get down to the price we want. And what they don't actually realize is that they'll end up chasing the market and selling it for significantly less. So this is a great slide to use. Ever since coming to KW, this was my go-to slide in all listing presentations, and man, is it powerful.
Love it, Jenny. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you. There have been a lot of questions that have come up in the chat. We just want to let everybody know we will answer questions at the end. As we go through the last couple of slides, we'll leave a few more minutes for Q&A. All right, team, this is just a reminder for you. We have slides that are available for you where you can pull up, whether it's Dade County, Broward County, whether it's condos or single families, where you can do a comparison as to what's actually happening in the market. And you get to dictate and choose as we go through this. You're just going to see them real quick flash on your screen. You get to choose the city that you want to compare. You can compare up to 4 different areas in the marketplace, or you can do the entire county and then 3 different cities. So you get to choose what you want to do. Again, like I said, Broward and Dade both combined. I'm not going to spend the time to dig into this, but I'm going to recommend that you go take the county you work in and then take the 2 or 3 cities you work in. Have this, keep this with you at every buyer consultation and as every listing consultation that you go on, because this is the information you need to be armed with. This is what the consumer is asking you. All right, I wanted to also remind you, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this, because this specifically speaks to our condo markets. And this is a graph and a slide and data we had extrapolated for you based on what is happening in the condo market specifically. What we did is we had it break down the inventory, the available inventory by years that the property or the units were built. And so pre-1970, 1970 to 1979, 1980 to 1999, I'm not going to read them all. You can read it for yourself, as you can see. And then it talks about sort of what's happening by that price bracket. So again, you can choose Dade County, you can choose Broward County. This particular report is actually not in the quarterly report, but we do this for you monthly. This is part of your monthly package. So pay attention to your monthly package and look for this particular report. I think it's very telling. It is also telling us the true story of what is really happening with the inventory that's out there. If you take a look, I'm just going to pull up where it happens to be on my screen right now. If you look at available active listings, buildings built that are on the MLS since 2022 or 2020 or newer, so the last 5 years, effectively, we only have 86 current units on the market. Now compare that to buildings built from 1970 to 1979, sort of that older inventory where we have 4,652. So remember, like I started, real estate is a hyper-local knowledge that you need to have, and real estate is hyper-local. The pricing is hyper-local. What's happening in one building is not necessarily happening in the one across the street. So please pay attention to this, because the story is a broad brush of everything, and that's not the story.
A lot of you have been asking where to find this. This is in Circle under level 5 leadership. If you click on market reports, you will see monthly and then you will see quarterly as well as our quarterly magazine. So if you have any questions on that, reach out to me directly.
Circle, that's like a reoccurring thing.
Circle, baby, get used to it.
It is our all encompassing one place to find all things. All right, so here you can see just kind of as we're winding down the supply in comparison to last year. The red bar is this year, the green bar would be last year, and that is months of supply by price point. So what you will notice is that in Dade County, in the single family home market, in several price points, we have, 20, 30, 40, 50% more available inventory this year than we did a year ago. But what you will also notice is that under 750,000 as our seller's asking price, we are still sitting in a seller's market. The market shifts and puts the buyer in control once we go over 750. And that's sort of what you'll see is a similar theme as we go through the slides. So we go from Dade County single family back to Broward County single family, and you're going to notice a very similar thing. And again, we go from a low of 3 months of inventory in the lower price points. The median sales price is going to have your inventory somewhere between 5 and 6.5 months of inventory, to our luxury and ultra luxury, where we've got about 20 months of inventory in the single family home market. And then over to the condo markets, and what you're going to see that over Dade, yeah, that starts to change, and it's tough to look at it on one screen, but there's where you're seeing your significant increases in your inventory, with the red bar being this year. This is where the inventory is. This is the story that is being painted as the story for the state, but the truth is the story is a hyper local to specific condos and specific buildings, not necessarily the entire market. But you'll see we go from, in this product type, we are at just under a year in any price point. So we have a year's worth of inventory, which also means if you're going to take a listing, it's really, really important to know the timeframes and be very careful on taking short-term listing agreements. It would not be my recommendation at this time to do so, because you want to put energy and effort and financial resources behind selling that listing. And if you don't have enough time or runway in front of you, that's, you're going to cut everybody short. All right, and then we go finally here, and this is the supply as comparison to last year in the Broward County condo and townhouse market. And again, we are, on a low of just around a year, 11 months of inventory, 11.3 months, to as high as 80 months of inventory. Let's just keep going.
As I say, I saw that.
Yeah, there isn't as much inventory in that, so we don't even want to talk about that little price point. All right, Red Day team. In front of us, a 1 week away, we have our annual day of community service. If you have been with Keller Williams for many years, you have, I'm sure, participated in a Red Day in the past. If you're new to us, welcome. This is your chance to connect and to give back to your local community. So details from your local market centers. We've got lots of different give back projects that we're doing. And remember, Red Day is not just a day for you to participate, but you can bring your family members, provided that they're registered with the market center and how it has to be done. Sometimes our youth are available to attend depending on the project that we're doing, and it's great for community service. It's also great for you to share with your community, with your database, that we don't just sell real estate. We live and we service these areas too, and we give back to the communities that give so much to us. So don't forget to participate in Red Day.
See you there.
Yeah, see you there. I want to thank all of our speakers, everybody who was with us today. I want to thank my co-hosts, both Davies and Adrian, as well as all of our team leaders, Danielle, Jenny, and John, and our special guests, both Greg and Rich, who added so much to today's conversation. If you, Davies is going to throw a poll or a question up there. I think we had one more to go.
We sure do.
And this is about scheduling a strategy session. If you've had questions too, that you want to go ahead and level up your business, we're going to throw a quick poll up there, and our team leaders can definitely help you do that. You might want to figure it out on your own. Maybe you need some help, or you're definitely ready to level up. Whatever it is, we want to know how we can help you.
You know, I love that no one said, I'll figure it out on my own, so.
Yeah,
don't
that's a
worry.
good thing.
But it was funny to see, maybe I'd be curious. I thought that's funny.
This is not a market team that you want to go at it alone. You want your team to help you, to support you, to keep going.
Someone's the
and-
black sheep, someone did it just because I said it. You see it?
Yes.
Why do I have a really strong
I think we
suspicion?
know who that
might
is.
know
Yep, I think we
actually
know who that is.
There might be two of them now. All right, rebels, we know who you are.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and end the poll. We're gonna do a quick video, Nat.
We are gonna do a quick video. And by the way, 80% of you said, yes, you're ready to level up.
Let's
You
get
want
it.
some additional help. So we're here to help you and get your business to where it absolutely needs to be. All right, team, quick little video for you as we wrap up today.
Hold that thought.
Okay, so we don't have a quick video for you today because of course, as life would have it, the little gremlin lives in our technology. But really what the gist of the video was all about change. The truth is our market changes constantly. We go from buyer market to seller market. We go from up, we go from down. The only constant we all have is change. We have to make a decision. We either roll up our sleeves and we head into it. I think Gary shared it best.
Mhm.
He had that buffalo.
Oh, yeah.
That
Charge-
that he would
Charge
charge the
the
storm
storm.
team. It is time to charge the storm. Keep going, keep pushing, keep driving, keep thriving, and keep sharing the truth with the consumer. It will serve them at the highest level possible. You're all amazing. We're gonna stop our recording, but we're gonna stay here to answer any questions that you all have for the next 5 minutes.